Okay, guys, so let's talk about experimental design, how we design experimental studies in statistics. Now we can understand what is the use of statistics. So here are the guidelines. First of all, we define the variables. We identify the variables of interest, that what we are trying to study. And then we define the population. So there are two identifications that are required. Number one, variables of interest, and number two, population of the study. That what we want to study and where we want to study it. Okay. And once you have identified variables, for example, you want to understand the motivation level of students in biostatistics class. Okay, so we have a population that all students of biostatistics would be population, and their motivation level would be the variable of interest. Okay, now you can have patients instead of students. You can have their blood pressure instead of motivation level, or there can be any variables or any population you want to study. Number two is to develop a plan for collection of data. How you're going to collect the data and what type of data you're going to collect. As we saw in data classification, that data can be at nominal level, data can be at ordinal, interval, or ratio level. So which data you want to collect and how you want to collect it. And do you want to use a sample or not? For example, if there are only 30 people in my class of biostatistics, maybe I won't take any sample. I will try to measure the level of my motivation in all of them. Okay, that is called a consensus. Okay. So a consensus means that I study each and every element of the population. But if I have a large number of students, for example, more than hundreds, then I can take a sample because it is a time-consuming method. It also cost me more money, and maybe it is not easy to access each and every student in the population. So I will select a sample. Then I have to define the sample, that what kind of sample I'm going to select. And today we're going to see that what kind of samples are available that can be used for this kind of study. And make sure the sample is representative of population. For example, there are male students and female students, and if I select a sample of only male students, that is not representative of the population. That is missing elements from the population. So I will try my best to include elements in the sample that represent the population fairly. Okay, the next stage would be to collect the data, and then the statistic starts. You describe the data. Remember, descriptive statistics, we describe the data through charts, graphs, and tables. And then inferential statistics, we interpret the data, we make decisions, we try to make inferences, we try to make estimations, and then we generalize those estimations through the population. For example, we say that, okay, we studied the motivation level in these 30 students out of 300 students. And these 30 students, about 75% of them are highly motivated. That means in population, we can estimate that around 75% students are highly motivated. But later on, we're going to explore this, that we cannot be 100% sure about this. Maybe our estimation is wrong. We can only be 95% sure or 99% sure or 90% sure. There are always going to be some instances where we're gonna be wrong, but mostly we will be right. We will be right up to 99%. We can be. Okay, then we identify the possible errors. So as I told you, there can always be errors. So we have to identify those possible errors. This is how we actually establish statistical studies, and we collect data, we analyze data, and we produce results, and we share that with scientific community. Right, so what are the methods of data collection? The first one is observational study, where a researcher observes and measures characteristic of interest of part of a population. Right, then you have an experiment or simulation or survey. Let me explain each of them. Okay, so you say that Ohio State of America has a population of Italian people who have a life expectancy of more than 90 years, which is the highest in the world. So why they have that much life expectancy? How can they live so long? So maybe you want to go and study their diet, their sports activities, right? Or maybe you want to study their social behavior, right? So when you go into Ohio, America, and you understand these people through observing them, that is called an observational study. You have to go there, you have to observe their visible behavior, which may include these and more elements, and that is what we call observational study. But what if I go to a single hospital and select 20? Uh, you have to be careful, because what I'm saying is you select 20 patients. Now you're making a selection, okay, and you put 10 of them into your experiment group, and you put the other 10 in your control group. Then you have a very magical kind of medicine which you give to these people, experiment group. When you give that medicine to these people and you observe them on daily basis, after 7 days you see that their average blood pressure was a lot lesser than control group. Okay, so you gave medicine to only experiment group. You did not give any medicine to control. Sometimes we use a placebo. Placebo. What is a placebo? Placebo is, it just looks like medicine because you have to give something to control. So they are mentally aware they are consuming something, but that is not actual medicine. That is just a copy of the medicine, but there is no real medicine in it. It's only a tablet, maybe a sugar tablet or something. So you give the sugar tablet or placebo to control, and you give the actual medicine to experimental group, and then you observe the blood pressure of both of these groups, and you find that the blood pressure in experiment group was a lot lower than the control group. Why it was lower? Because you have been giving them medicine. So this is because of the medicine. This means your medicine is effective. It can lower the blood pressure of individuals, patients. So this is an experiment. How this is an experiment? This is not a real life observation. You are confining them to a particular environment, and then you are manipulating a particular group. How you manipulate it? You provide them with the medicine. Okay, so this is different from observational study. Then we have simulations. Now by simulation we mean that we try to copy the actual natural environment in a confined environment. Okay, for example, you want to see that how people behave within prison. Okay, so Zimbardo experiment, I think this is the name of the experiment, Zimbardo prison experiment. You can go on YouTube and you can uh, observe this, you can read about it, and this is called Zimbardo prison experiment, which was a simulation where they put people in prison and make some of the people prison guards to know that how people actually behave in prison. So that was a real life simulation. And there are other simulations that can be run on computer. For example, genetic simulations are usually run on computers, and you can statistically identify that how many mutations were there and what data can be extracted from that. Okay, then there are survey studies. Some of you might have filled those questionnaires, lengthy questionnaires, when people come to you and ask you that they're doing research on a particular topic, and can you help them in fulfilling their research, and by filling up that questionnaire. Okay, that is a survey study. In survey, we do questionnaires, we do interviews, right? So when we have questions with us, they can be structured questions and they can be open-ended questions. You can look this up, what are structured questions and what are open-ended questions. But when we do interviews and we get filled up the questionnaires, then these are called survey studies. All right. So when we do these kind of studies to entire population, we call that census. And when we do that to a part of the population, it is called a sampling. Now it's very important to understand that what are different types of sampling. What is the stratified sampling? What is random sampling? What is systematic sampling? So we're going to see that how samples can be selected. The first one is stratified. And strata means layers. So when we select information from the layers of elements, and that is what we call stratified sampling. So we have students of 4 different years. We have first year students, second year students, first year freshmen, second year sophomores, third year juniors, and fourth year seniors. So while conducting an experiment or observational study, we selected people from each of them. Okay, so we selected people from each layer. You can see these red elements are selected from each layer. So when you select elements from the layers of population, that is called a stratified sampling. Then we have cluster sampling, and cluster samples are like this. You select a particular cluster. Maybe this looks like the map of Islamabad city to you, and there are sectors here. And I want to study the G13 sector. Okay, let me write here G13 sector. I only want to study this sector. So when I only study one single sector, maybe I want to study this for coronavirus or something. So that particular sector is a single cluster that I'm interested in. So that is called cluster sampling. You can select more than one clusters, but we select complete clusters. We don't leave any element out. When we select the cluster, we select it completely. So that is called cluster sampling. Next is systematic sampling. For example, I have 100 people here, and out of those 100 people, I want to select 10 people. So I can define a system. For example, I will select the first person, then I will leave out the 9 people, and I will select the 10th one, then 20th one, 30th one, and so on. So when I will reach to 100th, I will have 10 people with me. So that is a systematic sample. What is the system here? You are leaving kth number of people or elements. You're missing kth number of people or elements. So for example, you're missing like 4 elements, and you're selecting 5th element, or maybe you're missing 9 elements and you're selecting 10th element. Right. So convenience sampling consists only of available members of population. So whoever is available, for example, whoever patient is available, whoever doctor is available, or a student is available, depending upon the population that you are interested in, you just ask the available elements or objects or members. Okay. So we work with the available members. We do not look at a particular cluster. We do not do stratified sampling. We just look at the available content, and we only acquire information or data from that available number of members or elements. So here are a few examples. For example, if you're doing a study in a college and you're interested in the teachers in that college, so what you can do is you can randomly select 2 different departments. You selected 2 departments, complete departments, okay? By complete departments, I mean that when you select that department, you select all the teachers from that department. So this would be a cluster that you select. So this would be cluster sampling, okay? Next, you select only the teachers you currently have this semester. So there is availability. So these teachers were available in this semester, so we only asked them. So this is convenience, all right? And then we have you divided the teachers up according to their departments. You divided them up according to the departments and then choose and service some teachers. Okay, no, we are not selecting all the teachers. We are only selecting some teachers from different departments. So this is stratified. Stratified, why? Because there are layers, and those layers are called departments, and from each department we are selecting some of the teachers. Remember, when we select departments and from those departments we select all the teachers, that would be cluster sampling. All right. So here you can see the answers for these. The first one was a cluster sample, then we had the convenience sample, and last we had a stratified sample. All right, so this was the sampling techniques. So we are done with the first chapter. First, we saw what statistic is, how can we differentiate between population and sample. Then we saw the two types of statistics, descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Then we classified data into different levels of measurements and types of data. And then we studied about conducting, scientific experiments, scientific studies using statistics. And lastly, we saw there are sampling techniques that we can use, and what are those sampling techniques, how can we use them. And there is one more topic in the chapter which I would like you to go and read, because that is mostly based upon reading. That is the misuses of statistical information. You see that information in a lot of newspapers and TV channels, that they can somehow misrepresent information because they are not completely aware how to use that particular kind of statistical information. So you, as the student of science and statistics, you should be aware of those errors. Okay, so go and study that in the chapter. If you find anything difficult, you can contact me. Right? Thank you very much.